downstairs are all fired up. Thank you to all the department heads for being here for our annual little get-together. So Bob and Debbie, being the newest, Debbie may have been exposed to it back in the day when George was there, was here. Just kind of an overview of what's happening and a little update, a little bragging rights for 2019, and then an opportunity to chat a little bit about all the wonderful things you guys are going to be doing in 2020 and then some. So I think I covered it. Anna set this up, but I don't know if you guys drew straws to decide who wanted to go first, or we can follow the list. So the list starts with Mr. Tate and DPW, and Mr. Snowplow, Mr. Saltman, and a few other little miscellaneous things. So the floor is yours, sir.
All right, thank you. So this past year we certainly did a lot of work, a lot of road work on town roads. A lot more than we've been able to do in the past. Trying to kind of play catch up a little bit. A lot of catch basin replacements, which are improving the roads themselves. A lot of kind of been trying to be more proactive rather than reactive. With that said, want to kind of continue doing following the same trend into 2020. Some of the things we've done as far as employee and leadership development, doing individual training plans with the employees every year during their review process. Some of the guys we've been doing kind of mid-year reviews at 6 and 18 month, depending if they're in a new title, or if you guys just want kind of a progress report to know how they're doing, what they can improve on, and whatnot. So we've been between myself, Joe Perkins, the deputy director, and the kind of individual foreman for each department, been doing that together. As part of that, we've been coming up with top 3 training opportunities. Some of the guys have more than that, but trying to give the guys kind of goals and things to look forward to, as kind of part of the a part of their review process, and then also going through what their goals were for the previous year, what they've kind of been successful with, what things they can continue to work on to continue their growth. As far as improved communications, we a number of years ago had started a suggestion box down at DPW. You guys can put in anonymous notes or suggestions for anything that they would like to have discussed, whether it be with Tony, Tracy, myself, and we go through those every month when Tony and Tracy come down to kind of have our monthly meeting with the guys the first Wednesday of the month. So we'll continue to do that. I think it's been beneficial to kind of get some ideas out that guys think of, but don't want to forget about. We've also been making a point to kind of share a lot of our financial data, whether it's where we're going budget-wise, especially kind of as the budget gets approved and for what we're putting in for the budget. One of the things guys care about most is kind of knowing what equipment gets approved and what we're looking to do as a future forecast. So I've been trying to share that with them, get some of their input on kind of what we think is necessary, as well as the CHIPS funding, the extreme winter recovery, the Pave New York, all of the different funding opportunities we get through the state, giving them an idea of what our salt usage is. They certainly see when the barn is full of salt, and then as it kind of slowly dwindles down, but to actually be able to quantify that, I think is helpful for the guys. And then giving them kind of an idea of where we are operational, knowing that our budget typically starts about $8 million, and throughout the for the DPW as a whole, knowing kind of throughout the year where we're at. We've also created kind of a more of a crew daily job briefing sheet that we've been going over with the guys prior to the crews going out. As we kind of give out the morning orders and assign everyone to each various crew in the morning. We then give each crew, their own kind of sheet to go over with all of the crew members, make sure everyone's fully aware of kind of what's going on, what equipment's needed, what vehicles are needed, what materials are needed. And I think it's been helpful. If there's any questions, they can ask us before getting out on the jobs. It's made a lot of things smoother. It's made people forget things a lot less. And I think been overall beneficial. We've been the foremen have been making a point to stop in on all the jobs, make sure the guys are, kind of pointed in the right direction. If there's any uncertainty or, questions, or if they kind of come into any, snags or anything unexpected, they're able to kind of follow up with the, the foreman to figure out what the plan of action is going to be. As far as safety and attendance, we've been doing so in addition to kind of myself participating with the town's overall safety committee. We've also been having monthly safety meetings just down at DPW, comprising of myself, Joe, the deputy director, as well as all of the foremen. Some of the guys have, some of the crew members have actually participated in those, especially if they feel something needs to be brought up. But mainly it's ends up being the foreman. We discuss what we want to talk about for the kind of monthly safety meeting that we go over with all of the guys. We meet over at the Penfield ambulance typically the third Wednesday of the month. Go over there and do our monthly safety meeting with everyone for an hour, go over various topics, try to make them somewhat kind of weather relevant, as well as the time of year and what upcoming projects we may have. During those meetings, we also kind of go over any incidents that we've had over the course of the previous month, whether they were avoidable, unavoidable, kind of our fault, the fault of someone else, and what we can do to prevent those from happening again. We've been continuing to track our lost time, or kind of days without lost time. We're currently at 35. Hopefully that number continues to increase and rise for the foreseeable future.
So the goal is that if they reach 1 year, 365 days, 1 year, that we'll do a recognition luncheon for DPW. So we have been close several times,
Yes.
but we haven't quite hit it.
No.
But all efforts are to try to go without sending everyone home in the same condition they came to work.
Yes.
So.
Yep.
Or better.
Or better.
Well, if you're upstairs in engineering and planning and development services, that's probably true.
That's right.
As far as performance objectives, we did quite a bit. In 2018, we did even more this past year. A lot of work for Monroe County DOT. Quite a bit of work for the Penfield Central School District. Looking to continue to do that for this upcoming year. I've already been kind of coordinating with both the county and the school district on upcoming projects that they would like us to look at for this coming summer. Sometimes more work than I would prefer to do, but we've been able to, fortunately, we've been able to kind of fit it in and schedule it so that it works with us as well as them, and ends up benefiting the community as a whole. As I mentioned earlier, kind of bringing up our financial kind of budget standpoint with the guys. Been using that to go through and kind of benchmark the different department budgets. Print off every month right after the department head staff meeting. And Barbara lets me know when Logix will be up to date. I'm able to go in, print out the past month, kind of see where we're at, if there are any significant changes, where our budgets are, make sure we're not over or getting close to going over in any of those. And if we do have any costs that kind of above and beyond what we're expecting and need to adjust things, that we can do them ahead of time. Also want to make sure that we're measuring and maintaining our compliance requirements. So whether it be with our underground storage tanks for the fuel, above ground storage tanks for the oil, and the hydraulic fluids back in the mechanic shop, any of the spill controls for either of those different systems, working with Mark on their MS4 compliance. We've got the rain garden to the north of the property, making sure that that's working. We've got different sediment chambers and grit chambers within all the bays, so making sure that we're cleaning those out regularly and not dumping anything more into the storm sewer than we absolutely have to. Continuing to kind of work implementing a workload and asset management system with BAS. I know we had recently talked about the DocuWare as well, trying to see how that might be able to be utilized within DPW. I know our animal control uses a kind of subsidiary of BAS for some of their record management stuff. And we'll continue to look for grant funding opportunities. We had a few last year that helped out, Old Penfield Road being one of them, and kind of looking at continuing to see what we can find to help offset some of our costs and benefit the community. From personnel, we do have a few vacancies right now, looking to get those filled and get back to full staff. Use some seasonal labor for some of our kind of peak workloads, whether it be dispatchers come wintertime to keep an eye on the roads when we're not around, or our seasonal guys, especially in the parks department, to help out come summertime when they're being utilized quite a bit more. In addition, we're looking to add one full-time parks department employee, as well as one full-time sewer department employee, given that the departments are kind of some of the smaller ones, and could definitely utilize the additional help.
And that was built into the 2020
Correct.
budget.
Correct. Okay. From an expense and capital funding standpoint, we're within the 2020 budget. We requested and approved the following: two full-size six-wheel dump trucks with salters and plows, one 10-wheel dump truck with a salter and plow, a pickup truck for one of the highway foremen, a loader for the highway department to replace one that had recently was recently sent to the auction, a 3/4 ton pickup truck that'll actually be utilized for a lot of our drainage projects in that crew. Another 3/4 ton pickup truck for within our parks department for the foreman that needing a bigger truck as he helps plow some of the parking lots, both here, the community center, as well as some of the municipal parking lots and at the parks themselves. A tilt deck trailer that'll fit our larger Bobcat, be able to haul some attachments with the machine at the same time, rather than making multiple trips. A new pickup for the animal control officer, a additional pickup for the sewer department, and a replacement bigger 6-inch self-priming pump that we can use as a kind of backup for our pump stations if we need to pull the pumps and service them, or if we have any major issues going on. and then replacing two pickups with, or two of our older pickups with new in the facilities department. As we've kind of been working on it for the past year or two, kind of I'd like to continue to work on a design for a new DPW garage facility, and see how we can potentially implement that and keep that going. Looking to do some playground equipment and lighting upgrades, hopefully partially offset by some grant money that we're working with over at Roth's Park to do a inclusive, more handicap accessible playground. Continue to replace some of the rooftop units. I believe the three we're looking to do will all be over at the community center, as there's a number of the units and they're getting up there in age.
Just so the board knows, we've got 26, I think, 25 or 26 units on the roof. So we're in a program to replace a couple of them each year, so that they don't all come due at the same time.
Yep. In addition, also replacing the furnace and adding air conditioning at the Dayton's Corner School, and replacing the third phase of the rubber roofing above the gym over at the community center. Because due to the building size, we broke it up into 4 different phases. This upcoming year for 2020 would be phase 3. We've also been working on installing security cameras around the various kind of town facilities, and looking to continue to do that. The next ones would be over at the community center. We've also been looking at doing, or trying to continue to do pump station upgrades and improvements each year, and get away from some of the outdated equipment that's no longer supported and that we can't get replacement parts for. So the next station that we're looking at doing is over in the Country Club, Glenwood Brook neighborhood. Got on here milling and paving of Allen Road as our major highway project. We did something a little bit different with Old Penfield Road last year, doing more of a road recycling rather than kind of milling and replacing all the material. It saved a lot of money. We were able to actually do additional projects, and looking to see if Allen Road is a candidate for that for this upcoming year as well. Continuing to kind of upgrade the energy management system, making sure everything, all of the updates have downloaded, and that we're keeping an eye on all of our town facilities to the best of our ability. And for our chip sealing process, actually upping it to about 15 miles this upcoming year. I think this past year we did just under 14 is what our total came out to. For some of the ongoing training, a lot of it's kind of the same as in years past, working with Cornell Cooperative Extension for our pesticide management education, various management and employee workshops, for leadership and whatever else we see fit. We've done, each year we've gone to the annual Highway Superintendent Conference down in Ithaca, as well as Advocacy Day in Albany. So we'll look to continue to do that. Some of our guys over the past years have done various computer training courses at New Horizons. If there's anything that we see fit, especially for the foremen, as we're kind of doing different things, happy to look to send them. We've tried to do a lot of our own safety training workshops for employees between the different foremen, especially if one has a little more expertise in a given area, utilizing them. Also doing the same for our heavy equipment training. The security guards have to go through a or all of our security guards have to go through a yearly recertification training put on by the state. And same thing for our animal control officers for their NUCO license. Then for the parks guys, go through, every year have to renew their pesticide and their playground inspector certifications. So we'll be looking to do that. And the Dig Safe New York certified excavator program was originally mandated for everyone. All of our employees went to it last year and attended, or actually we had them come here, did one for all of them. They've recently come and said that municipalities are now exempt, but I think a lot of our guys benefit from it. So we may look to, if we can fit that in, if they're willing to come to us, may look to continue to do that.
Yes. All right. Questions for Eric? So that takes care of first quarter. What about Go ahead, Robert.
If I could just ask, how many employees, highway, parks, sewer, you know the numbers? Close, I mean, I know you're replacing some positions, it looks like, and adding.
56 plus or minus 1 or 2.
Encompasses the whole, each division.
Yeah, that includes highway, parks, sewer, facilities, animal control, security. And office staff.
Thank you.
So we can give you a more detailed breakdown if you like, so that you've got,
get you the
that
exact-
for the entire town.
Yeah. Well, that's good to know. And they stay in those specific areas, right? If somebody's in highway, they're in highway, or is there movement around?
Over the years, guys have transferred from one department to another, but daily they are kind of within their, their department. They do help one another out. You be somewhat careful. The
And you're all in
highway.
the same area now, too.
We are all at the same complex, so it
That
makes
was a
it
crew,
easier.
you know, for years they were, like, the parks was down there in Channington
Oh,
Park,
right,
you know?
right.
And that was huge when we were able to bring them together up here, you know?
Yep. Everyone's in the break room all together in the morning when we give morning orders. So guys in the sewer department will hear what the parks and highway facilities are doing, and vice versa.
Good, thank you.
Do you have anything more about solar or these energy initiatives? Because that's still under you, the facilities and so on.
It is to a point. I mean, we're
Yeah, we
kind
know
of
with Tony.
He takes the direction from the EEAC. Is pretty much where the EAC works on that. Town board kind of blesses, and then they implement. So Jim Kreckman has been kind of our focal point
Right.
with the
I know
solar the energy management
And
system.
swapping out
you
the
know, things.
lights as parking lot lights and things
Yes.
as
Yep.
you can with
Yeah.
LEDs.
Right. That was gonna happen in the Four Corners too. Did it happen? They were gonna change over the lights. It was dealing with RG&E, was it, or something? We were gonna get better lighting.
Well, we're in the process of going through and replacing lights with LEDs to make that better. And so as something burns out, we're replacing it. And then in addition to that, we're doing smaller projects. Each year we put a little extra in to do, projects. So it's going to take us a few years to get things changed out, because I think the last count, we had 400 or more. So
It's
to
climbed a
change
little
it,
bit, but yeah.
to change it all out would be pretty significant. So we've kind of been breaking it up as we've gone through.
Can I just ask one question about, I saw on here that you've mentioned they're going to redo the furnace and AC in Dayton's Corners?
Yes.
School. So maybe I'm ignorant, do we use that a lot? Is it used year-round for the school still,
school
classes?
season.
And they're in there all the winter and so forth?
I think
September to
last year
May.
we ran 1,600 kids through that program.
All year-round, okay.
Well,
not
Essentially, it
School year.
starts in September and goes until May, June.
Gotcha, so it's important. So it's well used,
That is well
Yes.
used.
Yes.
okay.
All right. Thank you, Eric. Appreciate it. We'll shift gears to our friends in planning and engineering, or engineering and planning, depending upon how you want to,
Engineering.
depending upon how you want to start that.
What hat you want to wear first?
Yeah, whichever one you want to start with.
You dive right in.
So the engineering side of things, jumping right into 2020 stuff. A huge thing for us is Phase 2 compliance, which is the MS4 permit, which basically what comes down from the EPA and the DEC. So they regulate a lot of, they've deputized us with all these new construction sites and all the new development going on. They can't be out to enough spots. Basically, they've deputized the popularized areas of the counties in different spots, saying, hey, you have to go out and do the enforcement for us. So that's a big effort on our part. Is one, it's part of our reviews and a day-to-day review of an application, making sure they meet the new standards, there's green infrastructure, there's biofilters and rain gardens, and so you're treating both water quality and water quantity. So a big part of our staff's is seeing the compliance with that, and there were supposed to be new regulations coming out governing the towns 2 years ago, and then we had a lot of comments back, and then so it's gone around and around, but we're expecting that to come out again this year. So there's regulations that cover developers and the public, and then there's ones that cover us. So we're expecting a new change in our permit, so that'll be obviously a lot of time on our end to get up to speed on that. We work closely with the Monroe County Stormwater Coalition. I'm a member of the executive committee, which helps. You're kind of on the front lines and know where the money's going and how that's being spent, and how, if there's grant funding out there with that. So that's kind of first and foremost on ours. Next item is design construction of drainage projects. We work closely with the DPW to keep our streams and creeks flowing. That's been a focus of this board for a number of years, and I think it's been working well. Went quite a number of years. We'd kind of spot, treat areas, and then you end up with flooding, ponding. Drainage is always a major consideration on any new planning board application. The town board hears concerns about it. So we've got a big map on our wall and kind of track every year where we've cleaned streams, what we maintain and mow. So I say we work closely with Eric and his crew to keep up with that. Recently some of his crew days they're not plowing or available, and he's loaned them out to us. They've been out walking streams and seeing what conditions are. You get windstorms and trees come down, and something that was working last week isn't this week, and somebody's wondering why their property's flooded. So it's a fine line between, in the drainage world, people have concerns about their backyard. We can't spend public dollars on private property to maintain their specific yard, a puddle in their yard or something in the back. We're always willing to give advice or help, but what we can do is maintain waters of the U.S., basically streams and drainage ways. We can go in and maintain those, dredge them when need be, maintain our ponds, so at least the overall infrastructure is working, and then if, that kind of helps the whole. One of the specific projects we've been working on for a number of years is Allen's Creek. That's kind of on the southwest portion of town. We had some significant erosion down there, so it backs up to the manufactured homes. It backs up to the Burroughs neighborhood through there, and we've had some significant erosion. We've got areas where the stream's widening out. We've got areas where it's undercutting hills. So we've been working with a consultant on that to get in it's called a joint application between the Army Corps and the DEC to submit that. We're looking for grant funding to go in and do some holistic changes in there, and put in some say they're environmentally conscious, but utilizing rocks and not hardening. We're not looking to go in with concrete everywhere, but utilizing, they call them mud sills, and making natural improvements, but to hopefully bring nature back into it and get the stream in more of a stable condition. It's adding sediment loading to Irondequoit Bay, which is a protected water. It's impacting trout streams. It's impacting people's properties as well. So that's a major project that hopefully we can get through been working on the design for a number of years. We've got the application submitted. Hopefully can work through the permitting and then get into doing some construction later this year. Working with the board for a number of years, we've kind of been allocating monies towards that and keep that project moving.
It's a $700,000 plus job. So.
Yeah, and we've been saving. We've got lots of rocks here, and darned if we're going to pay for rocks for the project. So when we run across projects, again, Eric and his team, we've been stockpiling them in Rothfuss Park in different areas. We've been saving them up. So when we got to go in and we got to put in weirs in the stream, or we've got to put in J hooks or different things, we've got the rock available for that. So we've kind of been, again, planning for a number of years for that. Our pond treatment program, work with the supervisor, but begin hopefully to talk more specifically with this board and maybe your next work session about that. We've got some ponds that have some excessive growth in them, so we do some very minor treatment. One of the questions, comments we get from people is about their pond. They don't like the look of it, the algae, whatever. We've shared many times we don't do pretty. We make sure it's functional. It's there for flood control. You live next to a stormwater treatment facility. It's not meant to be lakefront property, but in very specific locations, we get excessive, growth of lily pads and other stuff that choke up the outfall structure. We do some spot treatment with that. So the watershed committee looks at those. We'll be back before the board shortly to talk about those. Ongoing creek and stream cleaning. We work to walk the streams, get the necessary permitting from the DEC and Army Corps, and then there's specific things you can do. And then most recently, I say Eric and his team, we used to hire that out. It was a big expense to hire that out and have subcontract that cleaning. Eric and his team have in-house expertise now, so we've been utilizing them, and that's been a big savings to the town to keep those up. And then pond excavating and cleaning. We have over 180 ponds in town with new development. Some are private, some are public. But again, that's maintenance you need to stay on top of as they silt in and make sure they function properly. Sanitary sewer projects. This past year, just going back quickly, we were able to get this building on sanitary sewer. This building had been on septic since 1965 when the building was built. So we did our own in-house survey, design, bidding project, and then right through construction got the building on sanitary sewer, and as far as I know, it's been working fine, and hopefully will continue to work so. One of the things we're looking at is with the mixed use development along 250, there are some sewer capacity questions, concerns over there. So we're looking at doing some sewer modeling of those basins, seeing what additional capacity is out there, how much development can happen, and look at those different basins. The second item, the READY project, that's the state funding grant project for all the lakeshore flooding. We have 2 pump stations down on Empire Boulevard, Empire 1 and 2, that are in that area, and we've gotten some grant funding to build some flood-proofing around those pump stations to make sure if we do have a high lake level, our pump station isn't underwater with that. So we'll be working again with Eric, the sewer department, to get those infrastructure put into place, utilize that grant funding that the town board was able to secure for that, and then
When do you anticipate doing that? Starting that?
Most of the design will probably go through spring and summer, so it could be a fall letting of bidding, so that's just kind of a timing of whether that can be built this fall or into next year. But obviously got to work through the state and through the funding source with that, work with DEC, and so it seems like it should be a shorter process, but once you get a little bit of that, the grant funding, it always takes longer than what you think.
And the ribbon cuttings. Let's not forget
The ribbon cuts.
Uncle Andy should be here anytime ready to cut that ribbon.
Floodplain management, this is something we picked up from the building department after Harold's retirement, but that's become more and more prevalent as the FEMA regulations, flood base levels and everything else. So one of the big areas is the Panorama Valley area. That all is in a floodplain down there, so there are strict regulations on any new development, redevelopment, filling of a floodplain, new homes and everything else. And we did get a quasi audit this past year, and they were looking down to areas they noticed an aerial pictometry that they must overlap, that somebody had put a raised fill system in an area, and they saw that and wanted to know how that happened, what happened with it, and we don't issue permits for that. That goes through the health department. So, but getting down to that level, that obviously they can overlay the aerial photos and see if there's a fill in a flood area. So obviously the DEC is looking closely at that, so we've got to make sure we regulate it. If we don't do it properly, obviously that impacts the flood rates for our citizens, as well as obviously putting their homes more of a danger if we do get a large storm event. annual sidewalk program, we handled, worked with this board this past year to increase our budget for Huntington Meadows. We have that already allocated. We just recently took some trees down along Huntington Meadow. If you've been up through there in the last few weeks, there's some trees we had to take down along the frontage, work with the homeowners on that. So we're working with the contractor to be ready for first of spring to come in on Huntington Meadows. We've got some sidewalks going on Empire Boulevard, down at LaSalle's Landing, as well as on Sanders Farm and in the Willow Pond area, improve the connection from Crown Oak over to Wegmans. There's kind of an old paved path that needs some upgrades to improve the handicap accessibility of that. So that'll be hopefully a first out of the box spring project. GPS data collection. Actually, our summer intern has been back for winter break. So even as of today, we had them out there doing some mapping of that, increasing our data knowledge of what's out there. They do outfall observations, pond mapping, mapping of our storm and sanitary infrastructure so we know where that is. So we've had a focus of trying to do more in-house design, utilizing the expertise we have on our staff to do CAD design. We're working on doing some replacements. We've got some storm pipes that are seeing their age and starting to need replacements. We're looking at analyzing the flows through those and making sure we can replace those before they become an infrastructure issue. Just itemize the boards and committees that the engineering department works with, is on the committee for it on a regular basis. We're not requesting any personnel changes. We have no capital requirements, and then just some, obviously continue with office, IT things and computer upgrades as needed. I don't know if you want me to go through. I know we're running short on time, so.
Yep, I was just going to be that timekeeper to say,
Keep it moving.
I'll ask any questions. Certainly, we can always go back and have broader conversations if need be once we hear the discussion and review the paperwork that has been submitted by the department heads. But anything jump out that any questions the board has on the engineering side? All right, why don't you jump right in on the planning, Mark, if you would.
Yep, planning, obviously the town's 2020 comprehensive plan, is a major effort. Jim, as well as my staff, work on that. We're here every other Tuesday, working with the resident committee on that. We took over the role as being the lead this time instead of a consultant. Hopefully they found it beneficial. I think it's worked well on our end. We had a lot of lead time on education and how zoning works, and a lot of background stuff and what we do on a regular basis and things, what you're allowed to do, not allowed to do. So there was quite a bit of education on that end. That is completed. We've gone through looking at properties that have requested rezoning. We've completed that. Now we're in the position of looking to generate a draft document for the committee to look at, and then hitting the first quarter of the year, work through section by section with that committee, hopefully wrap up, end of the first quarter. We still then have more work to do after that. We've got to do a draft environmental impact statement with that, so you look at what is the impact of the changes that we're recommending, as well as going through the seeker process, and then look ultimately if the board wants to adopt that closer to the end of the year, and then get into implementation of, is there areas we recommended to rezone, is there changes that we're looking for from that. So that'll continue to be a major effort of our department through the year to keep that moving ahead, work with the committee, work with this board, and then get that wrapped up sometime this fall. Mixed use district, this board has a hearing scheduled coming up shortly. But that's still a new zoning district for us. So that came out of the 2010 comprehensive plan, was the recommendation to do mixed use along 250. It took a number of years, obviously, to come out of that, to develop that code and that the requirements that go with that, to develop the book that, the manual that people follow as they go through and develop that. And then now we're just starting to see the first start of that being rezoned. We've got the Penfield Square development going in right across from the YMCA. Senior housing facility that's a mix of independent, memory care, assisted living. It's going to have a restaurant in there, some things that tie in, open to the public as well as the residents, and then they've got some commercial outbuildings that hopefully all dovetail together. They've been working closely with the YMCA that hopefully that's a nice senior complex. We've seen a number of people come in and ask about it, and so there's definitely an interest, people looking for that, and definitely a need. We've identified in the last comp plan to come out of this comp plan as a need for more places for seniors, young professionals, so that's some of our focus is, we've got a lot of seniors that have lived here their whole lives, want to age in place, stay here, go to their same Wegmans, may not want to live in the four-bedroom, acre lot anymore and handle that, but, would like to stay here and have the similar amenities that they've had.
So are you, will the master plan indicate areas of the town that might potentially get rezoned?
It's some of the stuff we'll
for
talk.
that?
Yeah, we'll talk to, and whether we go to mixed use or not. We've looked at some different areas and how that would come out, but there may be recommendations again out of this comprehensive plan to continue that, expand others. We've been looking at some other areas for townhouse. We've been looking at some other areas for MR, multi-residential. So
Good.
we continue to work with a lot of builders and developers. We dedicate a lot of time working with them so that they're as prepared as possible before coming before the planning board or the town board. We get people to walk in on a daily basis, whether to Jim or myself or Zach or Doug. So we work with them on that. As part of it, working with Phyllis and PCTV with our new website. We're hoping to do some upgrades on our website that they can get some information ahead of time. But we like to have a personal touch as we work with them so that one, they're as prepared as possible before coming aboard. We can kind of filter out some of the projects that aren't going to make it, so they don't get to the board. So we do a lot of vetting ahead of time with that. Obviously, we work with the Planning Board Conservation Board. They've got requirements for getting 4 hours a year of training, so we make sure as county stuff comes up or other local training sessions come up, we make sure that they're afforded those opportunities to go get that and keep up on what the latest thing is, planning, secret laws, what have you with that. And then obviously keep up with our own training to make sure that we're up to date on the latest codes as things change and secret laws. There's some recent tweaks this year to the secret law with that. Personnel, depending on if this gentleman decides when and where he's going anytime soon. That's the only foreseeable impact we see. Obviously, he is irreplaceable.
Yeah, right. That's what I said about him 40 years ago. Look how that worked out.
Back.
I hope he doesn't go anywhere anytime soon, but
He's not. Just want to put a 50-year pin.
that's great.
I just got a chain in this car.
40 years is a great achievement, so kudos to him, and I hope he stays on for 50 and 60. So, no additional requests for additional funding. Nothing changed for software training. So,
All right.
I'll leave it there.
Questions for Mark on the planning side? All right, Mark, thank you, as always. Thank you very much for your efforts. And we jump to Mr. 50-year himself, Mr.
The
Costello.
guy who's been here since 1975, say.
I know.
So just very briefly, Mark covered the comprehensive plan update, and I'm not going to belabor that any longer. A lot of the time this year was spent with Tony and with Dick Horowitz working on Shadow Pines property. We, along with Mark and Zach, we acted as staff to the Shadow Pines Land Use Committee, and after that, Tony directed us to prepare an RFP to see what could be done in terms of utilizing the Clark House. We did that. I've walked several people through the Clark House. I'm starting to feel like I should be living in the Clark House myself. We had a couple people that were interested, and for various reasons they decided that it wasn't appropriate for them to take on the Clark House at this time. I actually do have another person that I'm going to walk through the Clark House on the 17th in the afternoon. It's a microbrew. I don't know how committed he would be to that or how committed the town would be to it, but one of the things we did was after we did the RFP, we recognized the fact that we did not get a great turnout for people interested in the property, and I'm thinking Tony and Dick and I may meet quickly to talk about possibly bringing in a commercial realtor of some type and advertising it out where they could walk people through and get a feel for getting more people into the building than what we've done in the past. So we've got to talk about that yet, but if that doesn't go forward, then we'll probably issue another RFP to get more people to come in. There's a lot of work that needs to be done on both the interior and the exterior of the building. And I think it's turning some people off that they've got to do so much and that we have to do so much. I think Tony and Dick were more than fair in talking to the people that were interested in terms of what their responsibilities would be versus ours. So we'll see how that goes, but it's an ongoing process, and hopefully we'll get some more people in. The other thing we did was we put out an RFP, which you ultimately authorized Tony to sign a contract with BME Associates to prepare a conceptual master plan for the properties out there. They're working on that. We've met with them a couple of times. They are proposing to get us a 50 to 75% complete plan by the end of this month. That'll give us a chance to review it and then possibly set a public informational meeting so the public can get a chance to get some input on that. Once that's completed, they'll take their comments and incorporate them into a final plan and put the thing together for you. I guess by the end of February, we're looking to have that done, so it'll be coming up pretty quickly. Obviously, for the board members who've been here in the past, you know the process, but many people don't realize that the town board oversees the development processes for the Four Corners District and for the LaSalle's Landing District on Empire Boulevard. So last year we had 14 applications before the board for, I think 3 or 4 of them were for new construction, the others were for just change of use permits. So it was kind of a busy year. I do anticipate this year we're going to have a gentleman by the name of Dr. Hout coming in to the next work session on the 22nd, and he's going to discuss his proposals for Empire Boulevard and Wilbur Tract Road with you to move forward on an apartment building on that site.
Is it the same?
So-
Has he changed anything? Or is
He's modified the plan to make it look more nautical as per Andy's request,
of course.
and I think he'll discuss that matter with you on the 22nd. So there's a lot going on, and we will see other things happening throughout the year in terms of your approval processes in effect during that period of time. Just some other real quick things. Working on one of the big things that's happening right now is there's a problem in that when Willow Pond was developed, there was a big piece of property at Willow Pond that was designed to accommodate a park area for the neighbors at Willow Pond, and that's all the neighbors at Willow Pond. And for years, it was owned by the developer. The developers come to us and indicated that they no longer want to own it. They don't have any interest in that area at this point in time. The last area they had was the Legacy. He sold the Legacy to another group. And I've been wrestling with them for the last several years to maintain the property because it technically was designed to accommodate a green space for the people and the residents of the park. I've actually worked with the owners of the Legacy to develop a park benches and everything in there. So
This is right behind Legacy, right?
Yeah.
That Ed was always...
So yes, exactly.
Still is.
And so I've been working with the owners. They're probably going to come to you at some point in time in the next few months to request that the town consider taking dedication of that land. My initial reaction was that I wasn't real supportive of that, but that being said, there are some things that have to be done for drainage in that area. They're a must. And there's also the maintenance of the park area, the walkways and everything. They actually did go in and do some work recently. They still need to do more. But I'm thinking if we can work an arrangement with them where they go in and get the property to the point where we're comfortable with it, the way it should be versus the way it is today, it might be something that you should consider looking at. The residents probably deserve a better situation out there than what they've had in the last several years. And we may want to look at the possibility of taking on that area. And I'm not going to say we should, but we would look at it and see if it's worth it. But that'll be coming to you before too much longer. We'll just get into the stuff about 2020 now real quickly. I know we're short for time. Again, talking about Shadow Pines and the Clark House, we will be working with the contractors and also with the board to develop that conceptual master plan for the Shadow Pines properties. We'll continue to work with the Clark House to see if we can get somebody in there that's a good fit for the site and the neighborhood. I'm continuing to work with developers and property owners and realtors to fill vacant properties in the town. That's an ongoing thing. It's been a tough year. It's been a real tough year. As you know, you and I talk a lot. Places like Panorama Plaza have been experiencing a lot of vacancies, and it's probably the worst year I've had since I've been doing this.
Yeah.
It's been a tough year. There are some new things coming in. I know there's a new Italian restaurant going into the plaza, but still they need more. And it's true of a lot of other places too. And I know there's a lot of competition with Amazon and others, but we are going to continue to work to see if we can get these properties filled up. So that's an ongoing process. Again, working with the planning department on the continuation and development of the comprehensive plan update and the secret process associated with it. That'll be an ongoing thing. There's no additional personnel anticipated in 2020 from my end. There's no expense or capital funding required. Any computer needs or software needs, we do that through Ann Buck's office, and she takes care of our needs for that. I don't anticipate going to any conferences outside of the Rochester area. We've had a lot of in-house training, which has worked out really well. I haven't seen anything that really was any importance to me in terms of having to go to that was not in the Rochester area, so there'd be no need to go overnight or any of that stuff. Continue to assist the planning department and the engineering department on a day-to-day basis. Phyllis and I work together on a day-to-day basis. She supports me, I support her on all of her efforts, and we'll continue to do that. Every so often the recreation department comes to me because they're looking for sponsorships for various events, and I happen to be the keeper of all of the businesses in town of Penfield, so I'm sharing that with them on a regular basis. And they do a good job because they don't try to just hit the same people over and over. They try to spread it out to take away some of the pressure. And then in the building department, we work on a day-to-day basis with both permit issuance and a lot of code compliance. We're doing a lot of code compliance with them, and we'll continue to do that on a regular basis. So that's kind of where we are, and as for whether I'm staying or going right now, I have no intention of I think what did Tom Brady say, it's highly unlikely.
Somebody's doing that, putting that in there.
It's highly unlikely.
This is scaring us like that.
He just wants you to appreciate him more.
Just a note though, you do have that public hearing coming up on mixed use.
Yeah.
If you get a chance and you haven't had a chance, take a look at the mixed use manual, and if you need us to get it to you or something, or you can go online and get it, but if you need, let us know. You should have
Yeah, it's on the website.
some knowledge of it before you get into that. And
Yeah, if there's anything we need or questions or stuff out of that, obviously Jim or I or staff will be happy to sit with you and go through that.
any questions?
All right.
Very good.
Thank you, Kaz.
Yep.
Thank you. Last but certainly not least,
right.
our communications
Communications.
extraordinaire.
This is a shorter one. I'll start with just with 2020. The goals remain the same that I report to the supervisor, and our goal every day is to make sure that we present information that's fact-based, accurate, and timely and transparent. And that's the measure that we put up against any communications that go out. And in recent years, there's town communications, and then there's the social world taking on its own voice. So we're very mindful every day of what it is we're sharing and why we're sharing it and how. That's our day-to-day, working on external and internal communications. I'm part of what we call the PR team. It's the TV department, myself and Sabrina Renner, who does communications from Recreation. So we together cover all aspects of what's going on. And the big thing for 2020 is that you'll get up to date from Dave Renner, both of you will get caught up, is that we're putting together a new website. And with that comes new capabilities and new ways of working. And I think that's going to be my biggest change this year, is different ways to gather and redistribute content. And that's really my role in it, is content. Dave's the project manager and the mastermind, and as we transition off of our old website to the new, there's a lot of care and feeding that's going to be required, and we've been working directly with all the departments making the transition, and so that part's going well. And the big change also for department heads is to start thinking of themselves as content owners, and thinking of the website as more of a newsroom. and a visual communication tool. It's been more like a print tool. And so hot topics, I'm taking notes even when you're saying you have your morning meetings. There's things that every day that residents are curious about. So there's like, how do we get a process in place where we pick out the highlights of, why are there trucks at such and such a place and what are they doing? So short little news bullets. There'll be more small bites instead of big blasts, I guess is one way to think about the new
Sometimes
website.
I think things can get out there, but they're not out there enough to the people that keep asking the same question. It's like sometimes I think it has to be put out on Facebook or Twitter, not just on the website under a message from the supervisor.
Well,
because you get the same people saying.
It does go out that
Not
way
always, though.
today.
There-
Well, our
there's
process
things-
today is, if Tony wants a message that goes out in the headline news blog, and from there, the same content goes out on Twitter and Facebook.
No, I don't think it's
So-
coming out as much as
Well,
you
if you
think
find
it
a
is.
specific example,
I
let
will,
me know.
I will.
But one of the things about, so that's a human chain there.
Yeah.
Phyllis sends it out, Brian does this and that. New world, new website,
Right.
one keystroke.
Yeah.
So
That'll
it's
be
like,
good.
I'll put it out.
There shouldn't be any excuse, right?
And it's gonna be,
Yes.
it's gonna be all part of the process of how
Right.
things work, and there's gonna be more visuals. So another thing we'll be looking for departments and board members are visuals, images. There
Pictures.
are
Active
lots of
pictures.
stories to
Yeah.
back things up, because you'll see there's gonna be a
Cool like
tile
that.
format,
Mhm.
and we'll be able to manage what is like top of mind kind of thing.
Right.
So,
No,
thinking of
It's exciting.
hot topics, yeah. I added in a little piece after you got your copy of mine. As part of the website project, our team got together and we're creating a style sheet that we want to be used for all public communications. So we're going to apply it first to the website and then kind of reel it back in and then start looking at all department communications. Because we want a steady voice. When the residents are dealing with the town, we want it to be the town of Penfield, not individual department uses of things. And it could be as simple as logo abuse, where, the town seal, you see it on
Shows up
some stuff.
somewhere.
And then voice and first person and that sort of thing. So you'll see that happening over the year. I'll be working with these guys as usual. We've got the 2020 comprehensive plan. I'll come into play as the document gets formed. I will continue to work on the Energy and Environmental Advisory Committee, reporting on the solar progress, and now we've got community choice aggregation. So there's gonna be a lot of communications with that as you guys decide what you want to do. And I'm always listening to hear where there's news and who needs to know what and when and how. And I don't need any personnel or training or expenses. I'm still using up Hannah's notebooks from high school. I don't even need paper. Yeah. Some of them have science or French at the beginning of it, but I get through that.
We can let her out of the corner once in a while.
That's right. I don't even use my lights. I took out my light bulbs.
She did.
Cost sense.
So major
Makes
projects
sense.
that other town departments will be relying on me, the website, comp plan, and Shadow Pines Communications, as that starts to take shape.
Yeah.
That's an ongoing, and always budget communications. And I think that's it. Any questions?
Questions for Phyllis?
All right.
Carbon footprint size too.
All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you for those that are staying. Welcome. Board members, that's not optional, by the way. And we're going to give just about 20 seconds, and then we're going to shift gears. We're going to allow our friend Lisa Grosser to get to the table, and our friends downstairs to refocus cameras and things like that.